Hello everybody, so now we are going to go over static variables in Java. So let's create a new project for this. Call it static variables. Okay. Let's press create. Make that full screen. I like to start these projects off from scratch just so that we can focus on the concept at hand without much code in and around it. So, static variables. We already know what variables are, but we've seen the static keyword before. And I have spoken about the static keyword in previous tutorials, but not so much at length, so let's discuss it now. So a static variable in Java, aka a class variable, also known as a class variable, are essentially shared variables that stay the same among all instances of a class. Right? So they are shared amongst all initialized instances of a class. Now, this is extremely important to wrap your head around, because if we go ahead and create a new class called counter, right? Let's just say that this is a counter class, as in like a number counter. And if we create a class as normal, so let's say we have private integer count, right? And that will obviously initialize itself to 0. And then if we go ahead and, generate our setter and getter for count here. If any of this doesn't look familiar, please do go back to my previous tutorial on setters and getters, and things like that, and objects. We have our normal object here. We might have an empty constructor, right? So public counter, in case we wanted to initialize it empty. And then we would also have probably a full constructor, including the count, right? And we can initialize it like that. Let's say if we wanted to start from 5, we could pass that in there. Now, obviously, this is all quite normal, trivial stuff, which you guys know, but I'll get to the point in a second. If we go counter equals new counter, and we initialize a counter, let's go counter.getCount, right? But then also what we need to do is we actually need to have functionality that's going to increment the counter rather than setting it. So if we replace this getter with just a normal function, so we go increment counter, right? And we go get rid of this parameter. And then if we go set count, so count plus 1, or no, this dot count, right? So we set it to itself plus 1. And then if we go dot increment count, so if we increment once, and then we get the value, hopefully we're going to see 1. Hopefully you guys are following along. So if we go system out print counter dot get count, hopefully we will see 1. Cool. So we've initialized it as 0. We increment it once, we get 1. Let's duplicate this line, so hopefully we increment it twice, and then we get 2. Cool, so we get 2. So this is working, right? Now, this increment is happening on every single individual instance of this class. So if we copy all of this, so select it all and press copy, and let's create some more lines down here. And we paste it, except we want to change this to maybe counter 1. So everywhere below here needs to reference this other counter. So we have a separate, we have a separate bit for this second counter. If we go ahead and run this, both of these two different counters would both be incrementing to 2 because they're different instances of counter, right? That would make sense. However, if we get rid of this, well, actually, no, let's not get rid of it for now. Let's go to counter, and let's just make this a static int. And let's just, instead of doing this in increment count, let's just go count equals count plus 1. Now we can actually shorthand this to count plus equal 1, and that will increment the current value by 1. And let's go back, and now let's see what happens if we press run. We get 2 and then 4. Huh? That's a bit weird. So the second we put this static keyword in, it shares this count variable across multiple instances of that counter. So we've actually got 2 different objects here, and we've used this static variable and we're statically incrementing it here. When we run that, it carries on. So if we created a third counter, so let's copy all of counter 1, press enter twice, paste it, and then give it a new name like counter 2 to make sure we're creating a different object. And we press run. Well, no, sorry, no, that was a mistake, not debug. Ignore that, press run. Then you'll see we get 2, 4, 6, and then we can add some more to this one, right? And then the third one will increment by 4, so then 4 plus 4 is 8, so we get 8. And then let's say maybe 3 on the first one, so we can duplicate that line there. We can run. And as you can see, we're sharing this count variable amongst many different instances of that object. And that is the purpose of a static field. Now, we can have static fields and we can have static functions or static methods. We can also have static classes as well. So yeah, hopefully that has explained the static variables in Java. Next, we're going to go over static methods in Java, like I just said. So wait till our next episode, guys. Should be right up next, and I'll see you there.